Saw just a few minutes ago President Biden and incoming President Trump finishing their tea as they get ready to head over to the U.S. Capitol for the next phase of the process. President Trump will be sworn in at noon today. So that's what we're taking a live look at right now. And we're going to talk about our guest here on the set is Dr. Peter Kuznick from American University. He's back with us now to talk more about what's going to take place today. And one of the things we heard Larry talk about was these federal workers and bringing them back to the office and what kind of impact that may have, as well as there's been some conversations as well about maybe some of these federal workers will either be dismissed or shipped out to somewhere else. The significance of just the thought of this happening in this country, in the nation's capital.
There is a lot of sense in the Trump people that the federal workers are part of the problem more than they're part of the solution. There's a certain kind of hostility toward them. We know that 80% of all federal employees are outside of the DC area. So they're already spread out around the country.
You're talking about Maryland and Virginia. And,
the DMV, as we call it.
Right.
And so they're already spread out. This, in some ways, is punitive, but it possibly could make things more efficient. I mean, there are some people probably who do slack off, but all the federal employees who I know are very hardworking, very conscientious, work a full day from their homes if they're working remotely, and most of them are working a hybrid, some days in the office, some days out. So I see that as more punitive than really an attempt to make things function more smoothly. But it's going to affect people's lives. And moving jobs outside of the DC area also affects people's lives. People can't just, if they've got families, pick up and move to Kansas or Iowa that easily in many cases. So again, it's going to hurt morale in the federal workforce. We've seen this happen before, but it's unfortunate when it does.
That, to me, it feels like a huge undertaking to take that on. What does that process even look like? Where does he start with that?
He starts with his Doge folks, starts with Musk and Ramaswamy and what they are going to be able to do. I mean, if you really want to cut government spending and government employment, the place to start is the military. What is the one place that's really bloated? It's the military. If Trump says we're not going to be fighting more wars, we're going to cut back on our overseas involvements, then that's the place to start. We're up to really, in terms of real military spending, we call in this country defense spending, but that's a euphemism. It's not about defense. It's about offense, about maintaining American domination around the world, which Trump gets on occasion. And so that's a good place to start. I would like to see that. Because as President Eisenhower said back in '53, every dollar that's spent on planes, on missiles, on bombs is a theft from the American people for what they really need. Schools, housing, health care, I mean, climate, dealing with global warming. These are what people really need. If Trump and Musk and Ramaswamy are going to take that on, more power to them. That would be great.
Well, with that core group, do you see other areas blossoming, space exploration or energy in those arenas?
Well, energy is a mixed bag because on day one, he's threatening to not only take us again out of the Paris Climate Accords, but to roll back all of Biden's efforts at energy conservation, at alternatives, renewables, and cutting greenhouse emissions and stopping global warming. Trump says, you know, it wants just to increase the amount of oil and gas. And so that's going to have a very detrimental effect on the attempts to stop global warming. And we see the effects of that. People feel that already in terms of the extreme weather that we're getting and other effects that they're seeing.
As we see the motorcade almost come to a stop there at the Capitol, and we will soon see President Biden and also President Trump leave the cars and walk in. I want to ask you, Dr. Kuznick, about this inaugural address. This is always a moment that America watches to see what the plan will be as it is laid out. What can we expect as far as other administrations? What do we expect from this address, almost versus what we saw at the rally, as well as you talked about the two different sides here?
Well, I'm waiting to hear what Trump says. We know what he said back in 2017. He talked about American carnage. That's what we talk about, this very, very dark vision of America. And are we going to see that again? I did see that at the rally yesterday. I'm hoping that's not his message today. More divisive kind of message about crime and all the bad things about America.
We just saw, I should say, the President Biden almost waiting and having the incoming President Trump walk in together, as we see them walking in together now for what will be an historic swearing in of the 47th president, who was also the 45th president. Just a moment in American politics.
Yeah, can you speak to this moment? I mean, we have not seen this.
No, but we did know back in after Biden defeated Trump last time, Trump did not invite Biden to the White House, as has always been customary. Biden did invite Trump to the White House this time, but you know, inaugurations are about the peaceful transfer of power in this country, which we've always had until 2021. So fortunately, we're going back to that, and it can be an uplifting moment. Inaugural addresses have been marked by soaring rhetoric, positive visions that have really inspired Americans. You know, Washington's second inaugural address was only 135 words long in 1793. That's by far the shortest.
You're right.
But we think not about that. We think about Lincoln in the midst of the end of the Civil War, trying to unify the country. He talks about with malice toward none, with charity toward all. Are we going to hear that from Donald Trump? That would be wonderful. But you know, that's not the Donald Trump we've grown accustomed to. We talk about John Kennedy, you know, ask not for what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. You know, a kind of a positive nationalist vision. The Kennedy of 1961 was still a kind of unrepentant Cold Warrior who's going to change after the Cuban Missile Crisis. And he talks about bearing any burden, facing any cost, that we're going to fight for freedom. It was still a Cold War kind of speech. But we've had other, and Kennedy in 61 warns about the threat of nuclear war, as did Eisenhower in 53. So, you know, people were dealing with real issues. Trump has criticized Biden for bringing us closer to nuclear war. Maybe he'll talk about that today. I'm waiting to see what he's going to talk about, especially when it comes to foreign policy, but domestic policy too.
It's really interesting because we know that you've dedicated so much of your career to studying and researching U.S. presidential administration. So thank you for that.
Thank you. We'll all wait and see together. We'll all be watching.
Yes, looking forward to it.